Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Mentally Strong Mums. This is a really good, important one for me because when clients come in, especially females, especially mothers, and even people that come in that aren't mothers yet, but they're just obviously women, I look at everything because I obviously identify as a social worker. So we look at things from the holistic perspective. And sometimes when people come in and they have mental health concerns. They don't feel good within themselves. They feel like they're not functioning very well. They feel like it's really difficult for them at work. Their relationship always feels like it's turmoil. We then do a little bit of investigation, and sometimes it can be an underlying case of PMDD. And PMDD is something that I get quite frustrated with because it's not well known, it's not spoken about, and a lot of people don't even know that about their own bodies. And in this day and age, obviously, me on my soapbox, because women are 50% of the population, all of these little known things, such as PMDD or we just don't know about. And there's not a lot of help either. So, this one, at least, I want to be able to increase awareness to this and try and help understand because if this is you or someone you know or a family member, it can definitely change your life, especially in terms of your own self acceptance, right? So sometimes as well, people like this, they feel like there's something wrong with me. I'm completely crazy because it's like I feel like a completely different person before my period, right? Before menstruation. I'm so overwhelmed with anxiety, with depression. I can even have rage. Sometimes it's even suicidal thoughts. And even clients that I've worked with who we've kind of figured out PMDD, people have misdiagnosed them previously with things like bipolar. You don't have bipolar because the category is it impacts you just the week or two before you have your period, before you menstruation. And it's that period where you're not yourself, you feel like a different person, your mental health is impacted, it impacts your relationships, your work, right? So potentially it could be PMDD. All right, this PMDD can be a severe hormone related mood disorder that significantly can disrupt your life. And sometimes, as well, when we look at different other mood disorders or personality disorders, it can show up within your life as well. So, we need to understand what it is and normalize it. And if our friends are like this, then maybe saying, hey, check out, do some research about PMDD, right? Premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So instead of just some people have PMS, just your normal PMS symptoms before you have your period, this is just elevated, a little bit more extreme, right? So PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and it's cycle, right? It's predictable within itself, even though sometimes I haven't been able to connect with myself, and that's because sometimes about the shame, the embarrassment, I don't have control over my body, I don't have control over my thoughts, and it's really upsetting because I don't want to know about it. I'd rather be in denial or put my head in the sand. And that's sometimes why we don't recognize the severity of these patterns because these are patterns. It's a cycle, right? It's a hormone-based mood disorder. And so sometimes it can be categorized by severe emotional and physical symptoms during the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle. So I always, when people come in, I have this handout, right? So luteal phase is after ovulation and before your period, right? So this generally happens in the luteal phase, which can also be PMS, be just beforehand, right? Before the luteal is ovulation, and ovulation is that time where you know that you get pregnant, but it can also increase your flirtatious and being present and spontaneous, right? And it's very exciting. We then have that menstruation, which is your period. Your progesterone and estrogen has dropped, and your period should last between 3 to 7 days. Not too heavy, not too light, just right. It's a really inappropriate joke. So I apologize. But yeah. And then the next one is the after you menstruate, after your period, is then your follicular phase. And I just love saying the word follicular, right? Your follicular phase is the time after your period has finished. Your estrogen is starting to rise again before you head into ovulation, right? And so during the follicular phase as well, your memory is sharper, your energy is more masculine, you have more creativity. And so it's really good to understand these different phases. If you are on contraceptives, such as the pill, sometimes it's these four different phases, like the four phases of the moon, aren't as clear because it all kind of comes in together, but you're still able to kind of pick it up, right? So sometimes with during this luteal phase, I want to be able to normalize women's hormones and what we're going through so that you can start to identify and use this as normal everyday language. During your luteal phase, symptoms include if you have PMD, mood swings, irritability. It can lead to depression, sometimes extreme depression. I have to call sick. I can't stop crying. I can't get out of bed. I can't change my mood. Nothing will make me kind of happy or laugh. It can increase your anxiety, your paranoia, and your control. So, increase your OCD symptoms, increase your paranoia. Sometimes, if you're in a romantic relationship, it then feels like the other person's not there for me, they're abandoning me, um, that they're seeing someone else and they're like, I haven't done anything. I'm exactly the same person, right? It can sometimes interrupt and impact your fatigue. So I'm exhausted. I can't concentrate. It's that brain fog. My arms literally feel heavy. And so that's sometimes with that depression as well as physical discomfort within myself. I can't stand myself, right? So PMDD, and also it does come with sometimes suicidal risks, right? Suicidal ideation. And because of the extreme mood swings and hormones of PMDD, it can be a very, very scary time. You can also have those intrusive thoughts that catch you unawares. And once sometimes they get in your thought loop, it's very, very difficult for you to be able to push them away, right? If you're able to get this formally diagnosed, you have to work really, really hard because there's not a lot of people out there. It's not well known. Sometimes even when you go to the doctor, they don't even know about it. And as I said, one of my other clients, they were misdiagnosed with bipolar because their PMDD was so severe, right? And it impacted them on a larger scale than just that specific phase before the menstruation. Do you know what I mean? If this kind of does resonate with you, and we're going to go into it a little bit later, it requires, and you want that diagnosis, you got to do a lot of the work yourself, which you should anyways. You should know the different phases of your cycles and how they impact you, which cycles, which phases, so like your ovulation or your luteal, menstruation or follicular. Are you more creative? Are you more present? Are you more fun and spontaneous? Are you more flirty and want kind of passion and intimacy? And the other phase where you don't want anything, you don't want to be around anyone, and it's understanding and normalizing women, right? So if you did want diagnosis, it requires tracking your symptoms over at least two different menstrual cycles. So every day, what does this look like in terms of morning, lunch, and dinner or afternoon? How do I feel? And so you're able to track that, even including your thoughts, your relationships, and if you've gone to work. Some people that have really extreme versions of PMDD, they're unable to work that week. And it's not a choice. That's the thing. This is not a choice. Because if I could choose to function, quote unquote, normally, I would want to be able to do that. I don't want to be able to have these extreme fluctuations where I can't control my thoughts, I can't control my mood. I feel cuckoo just this week, and then as soon as I get my period, I'm completely fine again as if nothing happened. But I feel like I've left all this carnage behind me, right? So when you do be able to track it, it's really important for you to be able to recognize during this phase what symptoms are causing significant distress or interference with my daily function? All right, that's a very, very important one. Which symptoms are causing significant distress and significant interference with my daily function, right? That can really help with the diagnosis. So it's important because the prevalence is quite out there because I see it, but because no one knows about it, it's underreported and people don't get diagnosed. So the current statistics that I would be able to find at the moment is PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, affects approximately 3 to 8% of menstruating individuals worldwide. So if you think, even if it's undiagnosed, 8% might be conservative, it might be up to 10 to 15%, right? And then if we're 50% of the population, that's a huge chunk of women that are really impacted in all of this. And if it's not that well known either, right? So, because of that, many suffer and suffer for years without a proper diagnosis due to lack of awareness, as well as a misattribution of symptoms. So, misdiagnosed with this or misdiagnosed with that, as opposed to actually understanding that it's PMDD. And if you have a lot of shame about it and you feel there's something wrong with you, or if you had childhood trauma, sometimes you then just blame all of it on that. Sometimes, if the symptoms go longer than that week, it can be really difficult as well. And obviously, how it impacts your mental health. It is that severe depression, it is severe anxiety, and sometimes, yes, those suicidal thoughts. And as soon as everything's fine again, do you know what I mean? But even though sometimes when I've got my period, they're still lingering and it's still uncomfortable. So the month is 4 weeks. For 2 of those weeks, I feel like I'm not myself and I'm incapacitated. And then it then impacts my mood for the weeks afterwards because of the carnage of what happened during my PMDD. So then it's just this flow on effect of all this really uncomfortable mental health, right? So there was this other study, this global study found that 72% of individuals with PMDD experience suicide ideation, right? And 34% of them had attempted suicide. So that's terrifying. So if you think that it might be about 10 to 15% of women, and women are 50% of the population, and then 72% of them have thought this, that's a huge injustice, right? Huge injustice. We should be protecting everyone and normalizing everyone. Meanwhile, this is all swept under the carpet, and I feel like there's something wrong with me, all right? 34% have attempted suicide, and 1% is too much, you know? But that's the impact of my hormones and how it impacts my mental health and my reality, my relationships, and then your parenting. And then how can you work? No, right? Sorry, excuse me. And especially when you think daily function, the flow on effects of that on how it impacts your work and your relationship, whether they be romantic relationships or platonic relationships, right? PMDD can impair performance at work, which means then you're not going to be considered for um, promotions because of your inconsistency. Sometimes, as well, if you work part time or you're a subcontractor or you're in retail or hospitality, if you're not consistent either, they will then give hours to other people. So then that really significantly disadvantages me financially, which means I'm already behind the eight ball because of these symptoms and how they're impacting me, and I'm misdiagnosed, and now financially it's hurting me as well, right? Because of the strained relationships as well, it's the carnage before and after, as well as then being able to be present with your kids to be able to parent the way that you want to parent, which is huge because then it doesn't have that beautiful, secure attachment anymore because you're literally struggling to keep your head above water because you feel like you're drowning every day. And if you feel like you're drowning every day, you then can't give other people life rafts or life because you need them for yourself, right? Sometimes with this, especially if it goes on for years and years and years diagnosed, I feel like I've lost myself during this luteal phase. It then impacts my identity and my confidence as a person, my confidence as a woman, as a wife, as a mother. And you can see it's really, really easy conclusion to be able to happen, right? So because PMDD is often underdiagnosed, there is such a huge lack of awareness because if this was normalized and spoken about and everyone knew, then healthcare providers would be adequately trained to be able to recognize PMDD or even offer it, right? Because also it can be misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed or under because of the stigma that's associated with it as well. Sometimes the PMDD symptoms are often dismissed as typical PMS or your own emotional instability or you've got a personality disorder. Do you know? So that's stigma around it, and especially if you've grown up in a culture or environment where women are less than. So things like, oh, here come she's crying again. Here come the waterworks. What are you on your period? You know, all of these really negative things to do with femininity. Um, what's the other one that's always used? It's you never trust something that bleeds for 5 days and then they still stay alive. You know, all of these really awful jokes and how, you know, I can always tell when you're getting your period because you're a B, you know, everyone knows that word. I don't know if I should say it, just in case you got kids in the car. But this is a pretty heavy one for kids in the car too. Sorry, kids. Mum loves you. Also, sometimes PMDD is often undiagnosed because of the diagnostic challenges. So, especially if a healthcare professional is not trained correctly in it, it can be really difficult because PMDD symptoms overlap with other mood disorders and then it can complicate diagnosis. So, sometimes listening to things like this with me can put the power into your own hands to figure out how to be able to diagnose myself, track things myself, what might be brutally honest about it, what are my intrusive thoughts, what are my moods, how has it impacted X, Y, and Z, and about functioning. Functioning is huge, okay? So when it comes to treatment options as well, it's a bit sad and tragic because there's no real clear, positive, and proven treatment options. There are things like SSRIs that can commonly be prescribed and can be effective when taken during the luteal phase or even continuously. And even looking into HRT, hormone replacement, and finding a interdisciplinary team with a gynae and a hormone specialist and also a GP as well as a therapist. So it's that collaborative approach, right? Potentially birth control, so hormonal stuff like birth control can kind of help as well. There's also GnRH antagonists, so that can be helpful for some people. And then sometimes in severe cases, being able to have kind of surgeries for all of that as well. But, and that's the thing, going through this journey can be very difficult about what works for you, who can help you, what are the options. And sometimes if I want that holistic route, or maybe I want to see someone like EMDR therapist to clear all my trauma, clear how the negative things that I feel about myself. So you've got negative cognition and positive cognition. Negative cognition is, what's the point? I'm not good enough. Um, it's my fault. I can't do anything right. I can't trust my body. I can't trust my judgment. We then rewire your brain with that neuroplasticity and EMDR into the positive cognitions. You know what? I am good enough. I've done nothing wrong. I can learn to trust my body. I can learn to trust to, I can learn to choose who to trust. I can use my words. I can express my needs. I'm in control. Everything's going to work out, right? So little shifts like that. So sometimes therapy can be really good at clearing the things that don't serve you anymore. Also, lifestyle changes, working really, really, really hard at having that regular exercise, dietary adjustments, even having a metabolic assessment about what foods I should eat and what foods I shouldn't eat, right? Stress management is huge, as well as cognitive behavioral therapy, which was what we were talking about before. How are you able to all of those other thoughts? And so all of these things I'm talking about in terms of lifestyle and therapy, they would be done at least the other 3 times of the 3 weeks of the month, and then being patient and kind with yourself during PMDD flare up or phase, or and how what works for you. So working really, really hard at prioritizing yourself without guilt to know what your body needs emotionally, what you need, how you need to be supported, even scheduling time off, whatever that looks like. Having really honest conversations about people around you. Listen, I think I have PMDD. This is not a choice for me. I'm trying my best to be able to move forward, but during this phase, please be patient and loving. I'm trying my best, and I would do anything to take this away. Brutally honest and vulnerable. If I can help you, tell me, and if you can help me, tell me. So then it's mutually beneficial. This can be romantic, platonic, work, and even kids when they get old enough. So especially if your kids are a certain age, I believe it's very, very important for you to empower your kids to tell them about menstruation, anxiety, all of that kind of stuff, genitalia, all of the sexes stuff. So when you can have these honest and transparent conversations, it then normalizes it and breaks those intergenerational cycles of stigma and taboo, and we don't talk about it. And do you know what I mean? So self-advocacy is huge. So if you can kind of clear the negative things that you feel about yourself, you can then be able to be in a mental place for self-advocacy, encouraging people to track your symptoms, seek medical advice. And if you seek medical advice with someone and they gaslight you, or they make you feel bad, or they don't know what you're talking about, or they don't have any, go next. Thank you for your time. Next. Don't give up on yourself. Keep on going until you find someone that can help or knows exactly what you're talking about, or even expert, right? Listen to more podcasts about this as well. So this is just an introductory dip your toe in the sand kind of podcast with it. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I think I had a couple of new clients, and in 2 weeks, 3 of them, I was like, "You got PMDD, honey. Do you know? I'm not saying this to scare you, but doesn't this sound normal? Isn't this normalizing? There's nothing wrong with you. This is just something now that we just add to your repertoire." Right? How can I also find community support? So highlight how important it is to be able to connect with PMDD support groups, because that's one of the most amazing things, to learn more about your condition and about what happens, and personal stories and how we overcame it, because then we can kind of put all the dots together and I don't feel alone, because we need to feel connected and safe, right? And especially trying to raise awareness, because if females are 50% of the population and this isn't well known, that's no, that's unacceptable, and it's a huge injustice. So even people listening, how can we increase research and education on PMDD? And if you know someone, and if you've heard, do you know what I mean? This beautiful flow on effect, right? So I want to say thank you so much for this. It can be confronting if you're hearing all of this for the first time. Go and have a look at PMDD, and even if your friend has extreme or severe PMS symptoms, this could also be something, because PMS shouldn't be all of these extreme mental health things, right? So obviously everything is on a scale. Some things can be a little bit of it, and some severe of it. So having a look as well, potentially if I do have PMDD, it's not PMS. What does that look like for me? How severe is it? I wonder what months it's worse. And I wonder when it first kind of started. I wonder then how that impacts. So looking at everything with curiosity. I wonder how that then impacts how I feel about myself, how I feel about my confidence within relationships, or my capabilities as a mother, right? If it's not PMS, it's PMDD. It's a severe hormone-related mood disorder that affects millions, yet many suffer in silence. Okay? Look after yourself, mums. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope this has been really beneficial to everyone and helpful. All right? Thank you so much for your time. Bye.